Hi everyone, welcome to this introductory video on JavaScript. If you're new to programming or just want to learn more about JavaScript, you've come to the right place. In this video, we'll be talking about two fundamental concepts in JavaScript, variables and functions. These are the building blocks of any JavaScript program, and once you understand this concept, you'll be on your way to create your own applications. I want to start by explaining a little bit about JavaScript and what it is and how can it be used. JavaScript is a high-level, dynamic, and interpreted programming language that is primarily used for building interactive and dynamic web pages. It's a core technology used for front-end web development alongside HTML and CSS. One of the things that makes JavaScript so powerful is how versatile it is. You can use JavaScript to add interactivity to your websites, create animations, or even build complex applications. All of this is possible because JavaScript is also able to run on servers in the backend thanks to Node, meaning that we can create a full application, front end and backend, all with JavaScript. Let's start talking about variables. In programming, a variable is a name storage location that can hold a value. In JavaScript, we use variables to store numbers, strings, objects, arrays, and so much more. To declare a variable, we can use the var keyword followed by the name of the variable. We can do this by doing something like this, var x. This will declare a variable, which is considered kind of like a tag that will hold certain value. When we declare it, it does not have value until we initialize it. To do that, we use the equal sign and then the value that we want to assign to this variable. In this case, we're declaring a variable called x, and we're setting the value of it to be 10. We can also declare multiple variables in a single line by using a comma. We can do var x equals 10, y equals 20, and then z equals 30. This will declare three variables with three different names and three different values. When we're programming and using variables, it is very important that we use scripted names for our variables so that others can understand what the variable represents. In our case, we're just using a very generic name because we're just learning about the concept. But let's say we want to create a variable and we call it var my variable. We can define a value to it, and we can also redefine the value and change it anytime. So we can do my variable equals hello. Once a variable is declared, we can change the value of this variable without needing to declare it again. If we wanted to check the value of our variable and how it's going, we can use the console.log that allows us to log into the console that it's executing the code, whatever we want it to log or display. In our case, we can use my variable. And then to execute it, I'm going to come here to the command line and I'm going to use node script.js, and it will execute the code that we've written so far. As we can see, it console logged hello, and that's because that's the last value of our variable, because the code is executed top to bottom. It declares a variable as 42, it changes the value to hello, and then we console log it. Let's say we just want to declare a variable with value and we want to see how it looks like. I'm going to delete this for now, and then I'm going to run my code again, and we'll see that now it's 42. Let's say I didn't want to delete it, but I still want to leave my code here for the future. I can use // to create what we call a comment. A comment, it's a special tag for code that allows us to put content that is not executed. So in our case, when I comment line 4 and I run my code again, it's not executed, it's considered just text. And then my variable will keep the same value. Now, let's talk a little bit about functions. A function is a block of code that performs a specific task and can perform this task as many times as we want it. To define functions in JavaScript, we use the function keyword, followed by the name of the function that we want to give it, and then a parenthesis. Let's say we want to declare a function greet. Once we declare our function, the next thing that we want to do is that we use curly brackets to define the block of code that it will execute every time that we call this function. So let's say that in this function, I want to console.log hello world. So what's going to happen is that every time I call this function, anything that is inside the block of code of these curly brackets will be executed. If I execute my code right now, nothing's going to happen. And the reason for it is that functions are special pieces of code that are declared but will only be executed when I tell it to execute. So for example, if I want to run my piece of code here, I'll have to do greet parentheses. And what's going to happen now when I execute my file is that it's going to start reading. It declares the variable, it declares my function, and then all the way up to line 8, it actually executes a function. And now it will console log hello world. Now, our functions are not just to run specific pieces of code, but are also dynamic. It allows me to receive what we call parameters or values that are passed in when we want to execute them. So for example, in this greet function, let's say that I don't want to just do a generic greet, but I want to greet a specific person or value that I'm given. I can pass in or declare a parameter name. And then what I can do is that here in the console log, I can define that I want to console log hello, and then I'm going to append the name variable, which will result on whatever name holds as value. If I want to pass in a value to this variable name, I'll pass it in as part of the execution of the function. So I can do something like Mr. Potts. And then when I execute my code, what it's going to do is that it's going to run my code. It declares the function. And then when I call the function, name will become whatever I passed in as value. And then it will console log hello, Mr. Potts. And we'll see that right here. The output of the console, it's what we declare right here on our function. Functions can also return values, which means that not only can they execute some code, but it could give me back something that I'm expecting or I want it to run. Let's say I create a function add, and I expecting two values to add. So I can do A and B. Then in my block of code, I can define return A plus B. In JavaScript, there are all these arithmetic operations that I can use, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, which allows me to execute all the mathematical operations that I need for my application. So let's say in this case, I want to add two numbers. I can declare a new variable, result, and I can assign the value of add 10, 20. And what's going to happen is that when I execute my code, I'm not going to see anything because I haven't told it to display it on the console. But if we follow the code, it declares my variable, it declares my function greet, it declares my function add, and then right here, I'm creating a new variable result, which value will be equal to whatever this function returns. If I console log it, I do console log result. What's going to happen once I execute my code is that it's going to give me the value of the variable result, which is, in our case, is 30. Because when we pass into the add function, the values of 10 and 20, it returns the addition of these two values. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this guide on JavaScript and it helps you better understand what variables and functions are in JavaScript. Keep practicing, explore the language, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be making more videos like this to help you get into the world of development. Thank you for watching.